Good evening. After 6 days of NATO bombing, President Milosevic says he's ready to talk, but only on his conditions. These include a NATO ceasefire and the disarming of the Kosovo rebels. The Russian Prime Minister who reopened the diplomacy called it a good start. Britain said it was actions that were needed from Milosevic, not words, and Germany flatly rejected his proposals as unacceptable. And all day, Western outrage grew at the winding columns of human misery trying to escape Kosovo and the Serb onslaught. Tonight, President Clinton went further than rejecting the conditional offer of talks. He warned the Yugoslav leader that he was undermining his right to have any claim to Kosovo at all. Brian Hanrahan reports on the day at least some talking began.
Even as the first details of the Russian initiative emerged, Serbian television was showing pictures of thousands of refugees leaving Pristina, the capital of Kosovo. One Western diplomat, watching the bedraggled column, abandoning their homes and their livelihoods, said this was hardly the evidence that NATO was demanding of an end to Serb oppression. It's not clear what has motivated this latest exodus, but NATO has talked of a modern-day Great Terror with people driven from their homes. And NATO says any settlement must allow them to return. Instead, the Russian Prime Minister has emerged with a list of President Milosevic's conditions for calling off his forces and starting negotiations. Mr. Primakov and Mr. Milosevic spent 6 hours together, in which the Yugoslav president said that NATO would have to call off its campaign before he took any action. But NATO had already set its standards.
We hope that Prime Minister Primakov will be successful today in persuading Milosevic to halt his attacks in Kosovo. That is what we're looking for. The crucial point of the mission is not to stop the NATO campaign, it's to stop the Serb attacks. That is the yardstick of success.
As details of President Milosevic's position circulated among the NATO allies, they rejected any idea of conditions.
The allies are united in our outrage over President Milosevic's atrocities against innocent people. We are determined to stay with our policy.
Fresh horror stories emerge with every group of refugees. These say they were hurried on their way with a hand grenade to frighten them. It may all make a settlement harder, because now the outrage at their misery has hardened NATO's position.
Of course, all day on the ground, the refugee crisis has been growing, causing outrage in the West and despair among the aid organizations. Ben Brown, whose powerful report you saw earlier, is on the Macedonian border with Kosovo now. Ben, when these people reach the border, are their immediate problems at least over?
Well, when they get to the border, Peter, some of them are still terrified. Until they cross, they are absolutely terrified. I've just been speaking on the telephone, in fact, to some Albanian refugees by mobile telephone who are stuck just a few miles from here on the road border into Macedonia. They're being processed very slowly, and there is a queue of several thousand of them there waiting in their cars to come across. It's taken them hours and hours, and of course, as you can see, nightfall has come down now. There are Serbian police and soldiers swarming all around them, and they still feel in very, very great danger.
If you cared to put to them the urging of President Milosevic tonight for them to return to their homes, what sort of reaction would you get?
Well, I have put that to them, and of course many of them have said, well, all of them really have said that's a sick joke. They wouldn't go back until NATO troops are on the ground there to guarantee their safety. They've heard offers from Mr. Milosevic before, when they fled from their homes, been told they should go back, and it's never turned out that it's been safe for them. And this time they won't go back, they say, until NATO are on the ground there.
On the ground, NATO spokesmen have launched a ferocious onslaught, saying they're shocked by the scale of the terror being directed by President Milosevic against the inhabitants of Kosovo. Our correspondent, Jonathan Marcus, reports from NATO headquarters in Brussels.
A modern-day Great Terror is underway in Kosovo, according to NATO, the like of which has not been seen since the killing fields of Cambodia. NATO's current air attacks seem unable to deter the Yugoslav forces from going about their grim work. NATO ambassadors are now seriously considering moving to phase 3 of the operation, enabling military planners to take in fixed targets anywhere in Yugoslavia. If the go-ahead is given, this could mean that the leadership infrastructure might also be hit, though NATO would not target individuals. NATO expected Yugoslav forces to step up their operations in Kosovo, but the scale and ferocity of their activities have taken the alliance by surprise.
On March the 20th, the day after the Paris talks were suspended, the Serbs began to drive thousands of ethnic Albanians from their homes. Some of them were executed and then their homes were set on fire. That was 4 days.